Imagine you're a medieval blacksmith. You've got iron, you've got copper, you've got silver. But there's one metal you can't get enough of: tin. Without it, your bronze is worthless. Your pewter can't be made. Your trade goods sit useless in your workshop. And there's only one place in all of England where tin flows like water: Cornwall. That distant windswept peninsula at the edge of the known world holds a monopoly on the metal that makes civilization possible. This is the story of why tin mattered so desperately, and why Cornwall became medieval England's most valuable real estate. Let's dig into the earth and discover what made Cornish tin the invisible foundation of medieval life. Tin doesn't look like much. It's soft, silvery gray, and bends easily in your hands. Alone, it's almost useless. But mix it with copper, just 10% tin to 90% copper, and you get bronze. Suddenly you have a metal hard enough for weapons, durable enough for tools, and workable enough for art. Bronze was humanity's first great metallurgical achievement, and it required tin. The Bronze Age didn't get its name by accident. For thousands of years, bronze was the most important manufactured material in the world. Swords, shields, helmets, cooking pots, jewelry, bells, statues, all bronze, and all requiring tin. The problem? Tin is rare. Copper deposits exist across Europe, but tin is concentrated in just a few locations, and Cornwall was one of the richest tin-producing regions on Earth. Even in the medieval period, long after iron replaced bronze as the primary metal for weapons and tools, tin remained essential. It was needed for making pewter, the everyday metal of plates, cups, and utensils. It was used in bell making, creating the resonant sound that called communities to prayer. It was crucial for creating certain alloys and for metalworking processes. Tin wasn't glamorous like gold or silver, but it was everywhere, doing the quiet work that held medieval material culture together. Tin mining in Cornwall became so important that it developed its own legal system. The stannaries were special tin mining districts governed by their own courts and laws, granted privileges by the crown. These weren't just administrative divisions, they were semi-autonomous regions where tin miners operated under different rules than the rest of England. Stannary law gave miners special rights. They could search for tin on any land, even private property, as long as they compensated landowners. They were exempt from certain taxes and military service. They answered to stannary courts rather than regular courts for many legal matters. This was the crown's way of encouraging tin production, make the conditions favorable, and the valuable metal keeps flowing. The stannary parliament, established in the medieval period, represented the interests of tin miners. It could pass local laws and resist certain royal impositions. This gave Cornish tin miners a degree of autonomy unusual for common workers in medieval England. The tin trade was so valuable that the crown was willing to grant these privileges to keep production high. Stannary towns like Lostwithiel, Truro, Liskeard, and Helston became centers of the tin trade. These were coinage towns where tin was weighed, taxed, and stamped with official marks before being sold. The process was tightly controlled. All tin had to be brought to coinage halls where royal officials assessed its quality and collected taxes. Only then could it be legally sold. This system ensured the crown received its share of Cornwall's tin wealth. Tin made fortunes, not usually for the miners themselves. Most were relatively poor, working harsh conditions for modest pay, but for the merchants, landowners, and the crown who controlled the trade. Tin was taxed heavily, and those taxes filled royal coffers. During the medieval period, tin revenues were a significant part of royal income, funding wars, castles, and court expenses. Merchants who bought tin at coinage towns and sold it across England and Europe could become wealthy. Tin was transported by pack horse and shipped to London, Bristol, and continental markets. Foreign merchants, especially from Flanders and the German states, eagerly purchased Cornish tin. It was exported to make bronze in foundries across Europe, to create pewter in workshops from Paris to Prague. The price of tin fluctuated based on supply and demand, but it was always valuable. During periods of war when bronze for cannons and bells was needed, prices soared. During peacetime, demand might drop, but never disappeared. Pewter remained the standard material for household goods, and that required constant tin supply. Landowners with tin deposits on their property collected fees from miners. The church owned significant tin-bearing lands and profited handsomely. Monasteries in Cornwall derived substantial income from tin mining rights. Everyone wanted a piece of the tin economy because tin was reliable wealth. As long as miners kept digging, money kept flowing. Tin mining was brutal work. Miners descended into narrow shafts dug by hand, often barely wide enough to crawl through. Ventilation was poor. Flooding was constant. Cornwall's wet climate meant water seeped into every excavation. Miners used leather buckets and hand pumps to remove water, exhausting labor that never ended. Cave-ins killed regularly. Without timber supports or engineering knowledge, tunnels collapsed. Miners were buried alive, their bodies sometimes never recovered. Lung diseases from breathing dust and fumes shortened lives. Arsenic, often found alongside tin, poisoned workers slowly. Many miners died young, their bodies broken by years of underground labor. Smelting tin was dangerous too. The ore had to be crushed, washed to concentrate the tin, then heated in furnaces to separate metal from rock. The process released toxic fumes. Burns from molten metal were common. Accidents in the smelting houses maimed workers. Yet the work continued because the demand never stopped and survival required income. Children worked in the mines. Small bodies could fit into narrow passages adults couldn't reach. They carried ore, operated pumps, and learned the trade that would consume their lives. For mining families, this was normal. Sons followed fathers into the earth. Generation after generation, their lives measured in the tin they produced. Cornwall's tin monopoly wasn't absolute. Devon, Cornwall's neighbor, also had tin deposits and developed its own mining industry. This created rivalry and legal disputes over mining rights and markets. The two counties' stannaries operated separately, sometimes competing, sometimes cooperating. The Crown played them against each other to maximize tax revenue. European sources of tin existed but were limited. Bohemia and Saxony in Central Europe had tin deposits, but they were smaller and harder to access. Iberian tin existed but was controlled by different political entities. For English and much of European demand, Cornwall remained the primary source. This gave Cornwall enormous economic leverage. Political control of Cornwall meant controlling tin revenue. During periods of civil war or noble rebellion, whoever held Cornwall held significant financial resources. The Duchy of Cornwall, established in 1337 for the heir to the throne, derived much of its income from tin. The eldest son of the monarch received duchy revenues, including substantial tin profits. This tied royal succession directly to Cornish tin. Tin mining in Cornwall continued long after the medieval period, but its peak importance gradually faded. New World tin discoveries in the early modern period provided competition. Changes in military technology reduced bronze demand for weapons. Ceramic and later metal alternatives challenged pewter's dominance. But for centuries, Cornwall was irreplaceable. Medieval civilization ran on tin, not as dramatically as it ran on grain or iron, but steadily, constantly, invisibly. Tin was in the cup you drank from, the bell that woke you, the pot your food cooked in, and almost all of it came from one remote, rugged corner of England. The landscape of Cornwall still bears the scars. Old mine shafts dot the moors. Ruined engine houses stand as monuments to later industrial mining. The earth is pocked with evidence of thousands of years of extraction. Walking across Cornwall is walking through a landscape shaped entirely by humanity's need for tin. Tin teaches us that medieval economy wasn't just about obvious luxuries like silk and spice. It was about the mundane essentials, the metals that made everyday objects possible. Without tin, there's no bronze. Without bronze and pewter, material culture collapses. You can't eat from nothing. You can't call people to church without bells. You can't make the tools that make other tools. Cornwall had what everyone needed, and that made it invaluable. Not glamorous, not romantic, just essential. The people who dug tin from Cornish earth rarely got rich, but their labor supplied the metal that held medieval Europe together. Every pewter plate, every church bell, every bronze fitting, Cornish tin made it possible. This is the power of resources. Control what people need, and you control wealth. Medieval Cornwall understood this. The crown understood this. The merchants understood this. And the miners, breaking their bodies in dark tunnels, understood it too, even if the wealth it created rarely reached their hands. Tin built no empires by itself, but it made empires possible. And for that, Cornwall was worth more than gold.